What's up, everybody? Welcome to Line Movement. Welcome to the Bets Against the Spread show. I'm Dieter Kurtenbach, joined by Joe Holka and Matt LaMarca. And before we get into the Sunday slate of games, we're going to ignore the games more or less because we have a show for that later on in the week. I have to talk to my good friend Matt LaMarca here for a second, just friend to friend. I saw that you tweeted last night, Matt, that you were thinking about betting the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You can get help, and we can help you here on the Line Movement Bets Against the Spread show. Why are you doing that, dude?
Just a million trends. I mean, betting teams that are winless heading into week 4 is typically a good thing. You know, nobody wants any part of them right now. They're coming off of a blowout. These are all things that point to success in the future. They're home underdogs against Denver. Yeah. I don't know. I may still talk myself into it, Dieter.
You know what the best trend of all is? They're the Jets. Don't do it.
Fair.
In worst case scenario, just walk away from it. Thursday Night Football is an abomination, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. Other than Matt LaMarca, if you bet on this, I'm going to have very serious questions about your sanity. Let's get into the Sunday slate. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts against Nick Foles and the Chicago Bears. Bears, an epic comeback, saving me some cash on Sunday. And now they get an Indianapolis team that I feel like they're just getting by, if we're being totally honest. It doesn't feel like things have clicked. I know, Matt LaMarca, you love them coming in. You can't feel too bad about your position, but how do you feel about them against the Chicago Bears coming up on Sunday?
The Bears. I mean, they certainly got by pretty well against the Jets. Not that that means anything.
Yes, well, I can get by in playing basketball in the driveway against a bunch of fifth graders, so here we are.
I still think I kind of like the Colts long term. I think this might be a good spot for them. You know, the big news obviously is the Foles thing for Chicago. Atlanta with just another epic choke last week. I mean, seriously. How does Dan Quinn still have a job?
It's expensive to fire people. I mean, it's hard to get people in during a pandemic. Like, it's tough. I don't know what to tell you. Who would replace them even? Like, it's clear that they don't have like anybody on that staff they're going to keep.
There was a show in my youth called Cat Dog. I
remember Cat Dog. Yeah.
They were playing a baseball game one time, and I don't remember if it was cat or dog.
Yeah, they were conjoined.
They were so bad at baseball that they literally put a mailbox at home plate to be the catcher instead of whichever one of the cat and or dog was bad at baseball. And sure enough, they were better with the mailbox. I think the Falcons would be better with the mailbox.
Did you think about that scene a lot watching the Mets this past year?
No.
Okay.
Mets had the best offense in the league. They got robbed, Dieter.
Yeah. Joe Holka, Nick Foles is the quarterback. Does that change your perspective at all on the Chicago Bears? The Bears.
First off, hey guys, I figured I would just hang out and just produce the show. Let you guys take the reins today since you have your little bromance going on. But that's great. I'd rather not work today, so this works out perfect.
we have rapport, sir. You can't build something like this.
I'm a big Nick Foles guy overall for fantasy. I think this game is a little bit scary. And I'll say this. You can be a Nick Foles guy and actually not watch Nick Foles play football. Because if you do that, you're no longer going to be a Nick Foles guy. It was rough. Like, you see this guy, like what he was doing last week. It looked like, I mean, this guy's a champion, and literally looked like he'd never thrown a football in his life before. So that was kind of rough. I think this game could be lower scoring overall. I think that was my first take on it. I think it's a pretty tight spread for both of these teams that I think are still trying to figure each other out a little bit. This Colts team, they took on the Vikings, the Jets. Like, they've beat 2 winless bad teams so far. So I'm still not sure if we know exactly what Indy is. The Bears have been kind of, I think they're always going to be a little bit up and down with the quarterback play that they have. So this one feels like a stay away, but I don't see a lot of points overall.
45 is the total.
The one thing I want to say is, let's not act like Nick Foles is this monster upgrade over Mitch Trubisky.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Foles is not a good quarterback. Outside of one run during the playoffs, which was a very impressive run, and he is a Super Bowl MVP, I can't take that away from him. The guy just doesn't play quarterback very well. I mean,
he was beat out by Mitch Trubisky in the preseason.
He's had an adjusted yards per attempt above 7 once in his career, basically.
Yeah.
Twice if you want to count a abbreviated season with just 4 games played. So like this guy, he's mediocre. You know,
mediocre's an upgrade though.
Yes, I agree. And if my thing more is that if people are treating it like it's this huge upgrade for the Bears, I want to be on the other side of that take.
Yeah, I get that. 82% of the bets right now on the over at 45 for this game, 44.5 in some places. So it does seem as if people are buying into Nick Foles actually being able to move the ball down the field, and maybe Phillip Rivers not slingshotting it to the other team once or twice in the game. That's just a stay away line. That's a danger zone line for me. And in terms of the spread, I don't know. I mean, you can bet on the Bears if you want. I'm gonna wait and see. They had no business winning that game last week. Atlanta did more to lose that game than Chicago did to win that game, in my estimation. New Orleans and the perfectly cooked Drew Brees going up against Detroit and Matt Stafford. New Orleans still a favorite. I guess that's what happens when you play the Detroit Lions, and a big fat total on this game of 54. Joe Holka, will start with you. Drew Brees, I believe he's cooked. We talk about this every time, but it's the only storyline. Is he cooked?
I mean, I don't know if it matters because some of the playmakers that he has around him. Like we saw what Kamara was able to do. I know we still, if we get Michael Thomas back, that would be great. I think that I'm trying to, I guess, figure out Detroit just because the Cardinals did everything they could to give that game away last week. Right. I don't know if New Orleans is really going to do that. I still think that the defense is very strong. I don't really think very highly in general of this Detroit team. So I think it's still the New Orleans side for me. I think that's a reasonable spread in this game, even if Drew Brees is cooked. I don't know if it matters for this one.
That's a good point. LaMarca, how do you feel about the turnover battle in this game? And if Detroit can get 3 interceptions again, the way that they did against Kyler Murray, who just decided, hey, that jersey looks nice, let me throw it there.
Yeah, I'd say that's doubtful. Yeah. The one thing that I'm keeping in mind here is that there's a narrative, or at least there used to be a narrative, that the Saints are a much better home team than they are a road team. That said, since the 2016 season, Brees is 19-9-1 against the spread on the road. So he's actually been a better, in terms of against the spread on the road than he has been at home. I would love to see Michael Thomas suit up in this contest. I mean, despite Kyler's performance, Detroit's secondary is still a little bit banged up. They might get Desmond Trufant back this week, but that's still not a huge upgrade. I don't know. It's a spot where I feel like I want to try and buy low on the Saints, but at the same time, you're still targeting a road favorite that's probably going to be the public side in this game, and those spots always make me a little bit nervous.
The consensus line on this opened up total 56, and that was too hot to trot, and so it's dropped down to 54 now. Do you feel any sort of way about the total in this game? That's putting a lot on Matt Stafford and the Detroit offense against the Saints defense that I don't know if it's as bad as it looked on Sunday Night Football. What do you think, LaMarca? Or not? Let's go to you, Joe Holka.
Looks like LaMarca's trying to figure out his headphones here. So yeah,
it's an AirPod scenario.
Yeah, I think that this total is interesting. The first thing that I thought was, I was kind of with you. I thought it was a little bit high, honestly. Yeah. So I think that just like maybe people are kind of baking in the fact that Drew Brees used to be Drew Brees, but this game's not at the Superdome. Like all of these things that we're talking about with the problems on offense, I guess the defensive struggles of the Lions, it does make some sense here. I don't know. I think that 54.5 or roughly what we're seeing on blitzbet.eu right now might be a little high. So I think if we're low on these teams overall, I think it makes sense to have an under spot here.
I'm with you on that one. And another high line, another big total here. Arizona and Kyler Murray. They can certainly sling it against Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina, who, I mean, they're not like incompetent, but nobody's ever accused them of being high flying. Joe, you're the Cardinals fan here. How do you feel about a 3.5 point spread in this game? It feels aggressive. I'm all in on Arizona if you were to ask me.
Man, lock, absolute lock. 3.5 points at the Panthers. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I understand the Kyler Murray, I guess his struggles last week, like trying to fit balls into tight windows for some of these wide receivers that he has that are not DeAndre Hopkins, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, just keep throwing. Like, you see what they do in the close to you, Dieter. Like for the Chargers, all they do, they just throw it to their best receiver. They just throw it to Keenan Allen.
It's a wild concept.
Like, make them stop him. So I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway last week. Like, why is Kyler trying to force the ball downfield to some of these other options when literally just make them stop DeAndre Hopkins? And I don't think the Panthers have anyone that can do that, literally. So I'm on them. I'm back on them for sure. I still think that they could have won that game last week if it wasn't for, Kyler's still young, right? We got to take those for someone that I think has a ton of upside long term. Like, there's going to be games like that where he just makes some mistakes, and I think that's what it was.
I think that's fair. That said, I was on Detroit in that game. I felt like the public was getting a little too hot and heavy with Kyler. I love Kyler. Not as much as you love Kyler, but that's a very, very high bar. Like, I hold Kyler MVP futures. Like, I'm in on Arizona as an actual contender in the NFC West. Like, I'm big on Arizona. Don't get me wrong. And I'm huge on Kyler, even though he's not a huge guy. But, man, like, that Detroit spot was just too tantalizing to take. The public was just way too in on Arizona, and I didn't see anything to that point that proved that they were some sort of different squad than they were last year. The defense still extremely questionable. It will get better because they have young talent, and I think they know what they're doing in terms of an identity on that side of the ball. But man, Kyler showed kind of the downside of that Arizona offense, which is if you don't take the easy plays, sometimes the hard plays are pretty tough to come by. And still, they probably should have won that game. That was on them for not winning it. As for Carolina, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to lose you a game, but he sure as hell ain't going to win one for you. And Robbie Anderson has been great. If LaMarca is with us, you could talk about Robbie Anderson here for a second because he's your guy. This is the dude who you said, like, week one, he's a really good wide receiver. I heeded your advice, and thank you very much. I've been making some money off of him.
Yes, apologies. I was having some headphones difficulties.
I blame Tim Cook.
All that new tech over there, LaMarca, and headphones is what goes wrong. What is wrong with you?
I'm trying to use the AirPods. I got to upgrade that. That's another thing that we're adding to the list.
Yeah. Hey, you keep making money. You can buy as much stuff as you want.
I think that this is a good over spot. We know about the Arizona offense. Joe mentioned all that you need to know about the Arizona offense, but to me, this Carolina offense is frisky. I talked about it last week, and they looked, pretty impressive against the Chargers defense that I don't think is that bad. I mean, they held the Chiefs pretty much in check 2 weeks ago. So I think that both of these teams are going to be able to put up points. And if you look at the betting numbers, I mean, we've already got 1.5 in most places that this thing has risen from 51 to 52.5. And the only thing I will say on the side is that there does appear to be some early sharp activity on Carolina. Tracked a couple of steam moves and reverse line moves on Carolina. So, the pros are in early. Panthers getting just 23% of the spread bets, but those bets account for 76% of the total money. So, again, interesting. It's early. This stuff is all subject to change. But as of right now, I think that the pros like the home underdog here against the Cardinals.
What do you think that's about? What do you think that sharp action is about? Because listen, they won. I mean, it's not as if they're some scrub team. I think Matt Rule's a good coach. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater's going to lose you games, but the Chargers just soiled the bed. I mean, that's why I don't know how to put it in a nicer way. It felt like they lost the game as opposed to Carolina won it, and perhaps that's enough. But I don't think Kyler Murray is going to go back to back losing efforts here. I think that you're going to get Arizona's best go, at least on the offensive end. You clean up one or two things, and you're back to juggernaut status. I'm not buying Carolina here. Why do you think the Sharps are in on them?
Yeah, I think that just the general opinion of the Cardinals might be a smidge high at the moment. After 2 weeks, people were calling them a legit serious contender, myself included. I fell into that trap as well. Okay. And I was one of the people, as Dieter mentioned, that kind of took the bait with that Lions game last week, and I lost on it. So if you look at what the Cardinals have done this season, they did squeak out a win against the 49ers on opening day. And we can debate, just how good San Francisco actually is at the moment. Then they blew the doors off of Washington. But again, that win doesn't look very impressive. And, they lost a close game against Detroit. So I think that if the general perception is that Arizona is a legit contender, borderline playoff team, wild card team type of deal, I'm not sure that accurately reflects the talent level on this squad just at the moment.
Well, let's be honest. If they beat Carolina, we're still going to be having this exact same conversation next week because everyone will be like, well, they only played Carolina and won. I mean, it's tricky. I'm just betting on Kyler Murray to bounce back, and 3.5 feels fair in this spot. And I would, man, that total's a stay away from me. That's just me personally. And we move on to the Exposure Bowl. We're going to find out who is a good quarterback, Joe Burrow or Gardner Minshew. Only one can survive. Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Cincinnati, 3-point favorites. The respect that Joe Burrow gets is just out of this world. And it's not surprising that 92% of the money line bets are on Jacksonville. The total is 48. We start with you, Matt LaMarca. Which quarterback is the real deal, Gardner Minshew or Joe Burrow?
I do like Joe Burrow. I want to just put that out there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, seriously, the amount of love this guy gets. What a gritty tie he pulled out last week. Seriously, nobody works.
Love a good tie.
Joe Burrow. I think that this is a pretty nice spot to potentially buy low on Jacksonville. And I say buy low loosely because they're pretty low to begin with.
There's only so many lower places.
Like I'm super bullish on Jacksonville, but I like the fact that they have the rest edge in this spot. They're coming off of a Thursday game, and so they get 10 days to prepare while Cincinnati only gets 7. Right. Again, another one where it looks like the sharps are in on the Jags early. 54% of the spread bets, but 99% of the spread money. So I like the idea of grabbing the field goal with them. If it dips below that, then I will reconsider. But considering that we're getting a full field goal with two teams that I think are pretty even, I will definitely side with the Jaguars.
Joe, where do you sit on this?
Yeah, I think I'm on the Bengals here, guys. I think we saw a team in Jacksonville that was kind of cooling off. Minshew did not look very good last week, and I think that Burrow, he seems like he's kind of making some progress, right? So I think there's a bunch of guys that could kind of bounce back here for the Bengals. I think Joe Mixon's super underrated overall in this spot. And against Jacksonville, we were all just falling over ourselves to play people against Jacksonville earlier in the season, and I get it. Maybe they're not as bad as originally we thought, but it's possible that they're still we haven't gone all the way the other side, and we're saying that Jacksonville actually has a good defense either. So I actually think that 3 points is fine, I think, in this spot for the Bengals. I'm definitely team Joe Burrow in this spot, and I'm a big Gardner Minshew person overall. I'm not quite a Josh Allen type of love affair here, but I do like Minshew quite a bit.
I think Minshew's pretty good. I question how much we can read into Jacksonville because of the Thursday night game this early in the season, no preseason. That's a team that's still really young, that still needs to figure some stuff out. Minshew, listen, he can create stuff on the fly, but that you'd like to have a full week of game planning. So I'm kind of with LaMarca here that the rest advantage might be an interesting play. Now, if Jacksonville fails us here, we can completely get off of any positions that we had on the Jags. We can just write them off as just a straight up bad team because you're supposed to be able, if you don't play well on Thursday night, you got to play well the following Sunday. You just got to do it because now the excuses are coming on both ends, and that just doesn't fly. I'm very interested to see how this game goes. I think that this is actually a sneaky, intriguing game, and I'll definitely have it open on the Red Zone. Or hopefully it's on the Red Zone. That's not my call. I might pull it up on a stream or two, just because I need to get a read on either of these two teams. I don't have one yet. I would like to have one. That sure seems like something I should have by week 4, but here we are. Alas, Jacksonville and Cincinnati, an intriguing battle, which, hey, credit to the NFL. They made stuff interesting. Cleveland and Dallas. Now this one's a good one. Joe Holka, we'll start with you. Dallas can't stop anybody, but can Baker Mayfield stop himself?
I think that you answered your own question there, Dieter. I think he definitely can. I don't know. Like I've been bullish on the Cowboys this whole season. I'm not about to jump off after what happened last week. I still think that this team can do a lot of good on offense, especially against this Browns team. One thing that I will say is like we kind of come to know this Dallas team as being someone that has such a strong offensive line. If it doesn't hold up in this spot against this Brown team that brings a ton of pressure, we could have some issues there. But we always talk about quarterbacks that perform well under pressure. Dak is one of those guys. So I think that overall he probably handles it okay. I think that the Cowboys, it's still a reasonable. I'm seeing that's at -4.5 on blitzbet.eu right now. So I think it's still a reasonable spot. This is probably one of my favorite ones to bet of the week, actually. I think the Cowboys roll.
55.5 point total, Matt LaMarca. That's a lot of juice. There's a lot going on there, and that's a lot of buy-in on the Browns, in my estimation. That, okay, they might lose. They might lose by 2 touchdowns, but they're going to get a couple on the board. Listen, I like what I've seen from Baker Mayfield in the Stefanski system.
You have?
I think it will work. I really do think it will work. I think it's the right fit for whatever it is he's got going on. Now, I don't think he's going to turn into an MVP candidate or anything, but I think it's better than what they certainly had going, which isn't a high bar. And even before that, in the first Freddie Kitchens iteration, when he was just the quarterback's coach or whatever, like, I think that this fits Baker best. It puts him in a lot of rollout situations. He doesn't want to stay in the pocket anyway. Is he good in those situations? I don't know, but he's comfortable, and comfortability matters. I don't know. You don't like Baker in this new offense? You're not buying in on the Browns with the 2-headed rushing attack and the good receivers and the great offensive line and Baker Mayfield rolling to his right?
Baker Mayfield stinks. The rushing game is super legit. I mean, back-to-back weeks with over 200 yards on the ground. I buy that.
Oh, yeah, well, as you should.
But Baker, I mean, no, I don't trust him to make throws if he needs to. And okay. Cleveland has played 2 teams with dreadful run defenses the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is not great in that department. They're 13th in rush defense DVOA at the moment, but I think they can keep Cleveland under 200 yards. And if that happens, I just don't know if Baker can make the throws. I mean, in my opinion, I did not like what I saw when he had to make, throws against Washington last week.
Very fair.
But it helps when, the opposing team gifts you 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
That game against Washington was a lot closer than the final score indicated.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Again, I'm always skeptical of backing public teams, and I do think that the Cowboys are going to be a super public team, but
as always, yeah.
It's just one of those things where, like, I feel like laying less than a touchdown with Dallas, it's the right call. I mean, yes, their defenses look dreadful to start the season, but Seattle has lit up everybody. Mm-hmm. I don't hold anything against them for getting torched by Russell Wilson, who again.
Now, what about Atlanta? what about when Atlanta torches you?
Atlanta has a good offense, or at least a respectable offense.
Okay.
And against the Rams in week 1, they held them to 24 points, I think, but they just couldn't score anything. So I don't know. I think that Dallas is the right side, but ultimately I'm just a little bit scared of the fact that this is going to be a spot where everyone is on Dallas.
How do you feel about the total here? Because it is a big, fat, juicy total. 55.5.
I thought about that. That's gone up. My initial thought is that it's too high for a team like Cleveland, that if they have their way, they will run the ball, 35, 40 times in this game.
By the way, same with Dallas. Dallas has its way. It's given the ball to Zeke a bunch. I mean, not as much as Cleveland, but they still want to run it.
So, anytime that I think that there's going to be, one team that wants to keep the clock moving, I tend to favor the under, especially on a total this large.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cowboys game did go over last week, but I did see a stat that prior to that contest, when you have a total of at least 55, the under has gone 16-8 over the previous 24 instances. So, yes, it came through with a bunch of points in that Seattle game, but I don't see Russell Wilson on the field for the Browns this week. And as long as that's the case, I'm okay with the under.
Okay. I'm Yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is a clear underplay, and I'm in on Dallas at -4.5. I just wanted to give a little bit of love to Cleveland because I can see this thing. I can see the narratives developing now. I'm just telling you, Dallas is always the narrative. Everyone's going to talk about Dallas. The big networks, all they want to do is talk about the Cowboys. They're the ultimate public team, and if Cleveland beats them, I mean, Cleveland was the team that everyone was pumping up last year. They're going to take a victory lap like 19 games too late. I mean, it's just gearing up to happen. I'm telling you, the NFL is too narrative driven to ignore what everyone wants to happen in my line of work, which is the mainstream media. I'm telling you, Baker Mayfield wins this one. You're never going to hear the end of it. So I'm just giving you an opportunity to hedge your bet. That's all I'm saying. Now, Kirk Cousins, we can all fade. We can fade him so very hard. He's going to go play Deshaun Watson in the Houston Texans. You want to talk about a line movement, guys. The total on this started at 49.5. It is now 54.5. I don't know where they found this near touchdown, but the books are feeling it. Houston is favored by 3.5 points. Again, 54.5 point total for Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. Is Justin Jefferson the answer, Joe Holka? I ask you because I am not buying any of this.
I don't know, Dieter. There's a couple of things that I kind of like here, and I'm not really I do live in Minnesota, but I'm not really a Vikings truther. Right. I think that it's pretty big that now they hopefully have like a third option to go to in this offense. They've really just been trying to live and die by Dalvin Cook and by Adam Thielen, so I think that's positive. I also think that in this specific matchup against the Houston Texans, like they really struggle here at defending the run. Dalvin Cook and even Alexander Mattison could just go absolutely nuts in this spot. So I actually am kind of interested in Minnesota scoring some points here at minus 3.5 for the Texans. I actually think I like the Vikings side of this one. Do you guys disagree?
What do you got, LaMarca?
I'm with Joe. I like the Vikings. Houston really let me down last week. I thought that it was a great spot for them. They jumped out to a 14-3 lead, and I was getting 4 points with Houston, and they ended up losing by a full touchdown. So, I'm not a guy that like writes teams off. If I think it's a good spot, I'll go back to them. But I think that this Minnesota team is probably a smidge undervalued at the moment. Like There's some talk that they are as bad as teams like the Jets and the Giants. And I don't see it.
No, that's
especially when you factor in Jefferson, who I think is legitimate. I mean, I know it's just one game, but I buy that kid.
Yeah,
I think he's a very good player. We've seen some line movement on this game already, some steam moves when this spread was at 4. So I think the sharps like the Vikings at 4. I'm okay with them at 3.5. Houston's going to be the public side in this game because they have Deshaun Watson. But I think that, like Joe said, Minnesota has some weapons, and Kirk Cousins is not a guy that you feel great about in a big game, but he's also not a disaster of a quarterback.
Yes. I mean, clearly he's not. Yeah, this isn't a big enough moment for the true disaster pants of Kirk Cousins to come out.
He's not a disaster. What a rousing endorsement for this guy.
Yeah, he's well paid for a non-disaster. As someone who I'd like to think has not been a disaster personally for my last few years at least. I should be making more money if that's the standard now to make as much as he's getting. I could be talked into a Minnesota money line bet. I feel comfortable with that. If you're going to throw, 3.5 points out there, 4.5 points in some places, I can be talked into a Minnesota money line bet. But you're right that they're not nearly as bad. I mean, they're not even in the same stratosphere as the Jets and the Giants.
I don't even think the Giants are in the same stratosphere as the Jets. By the way.
I don't know, man. I've had to watch those full games. I've had to watch the Jets and 49ers and the Giants and 49ers for my other job. And boy, I mean, you're right that the Jets are significantly worse, but man, there is 6 yards of crap. And then there's the Jets and the Giants. I mean, Jimmy Hoffa is somehow shallower than those two guys are. This is too dangerous for me. It's just too dangerous for me. It's two teams that need to get right. It's two teams that have dramatically underperformed compared to expectations. One of them's going to get right. I don't know which one it's going to be. I appreciate all of your points. They're very salient. They make a lot of sense, but I don't know. Watson's really good. And sometimes it just comes down to who has the better quarterback. So I can be talked into the Minnesota money line, and if I was betting it, this is where I'd probably go, but this is a big stay away for me. The total is far too hot to trot. That spread is too tight to feel comfortable about. I don't know. This game's kind of a hot mess. Interested to see if the lines move any more on this one moving forward, because we've already had some.
We should throw out, too.
Yeah.
There are the COVID concerns with Minnesota. You know, the Titans had some positive tests, so Minnesota has had to quarantine. They closed down the facility. I mean, there's no word that any Minnesota player has tested positive, but it is something to monitor as the week progresses.
Yeah, apparently the Tennessee Titans playing a game despite having a positive test. Awesome. Good job, everybody. Well, glad those protocols worked for it all. All right, Seattle and the MVP, Russell Wilson, is going to go play everyone's MVP, the MVP of our hearts, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the Miami Dolphins. In Miami, Mr. Unlimited goes to the Magic City. Seattle 6.5-point favorites in this game. And the total's 54, as you would probably expect, given how Seattle's been putting points on the board. I mean, are we undervaluing Seattle here at 6.5 points, Matt LaMarca?
Man, this is a real tricky spot, I think. Seattle,
it's a long flight.
Seattle's coming off of a big win.
Yeah.
Big comeback win. This looks like a classic letdown spot to me. And for what it's worth, this game has somehow received the second highest number of bets to start the week. And it's because the sharps like the Dolphins. They grabbed that number of 7 real quick.
Yeah.
Got it down to 6.5. It'll be interesting to see if it gets back to 7 because, everybody's going to take Seattle in this game. They're currently getting 81% of the public bets right now. Right. Seattle's going to be one of the most public teams of the week, given how they've played to start the season. But if it's 7, you might find me on the fish, man.
Miami has a football team, baby. Joe Holka is the play here, the over. If we're all going to buy the Dolphins, that means they got to put up some points. And we know Russ can throw it around. Chris Carson, who knows what's going to be going on with him this week. Is the play just 2 passing offenses slanging it around, and they're going to go over 54 with ease?
So I've it's Tuesday literally, and I've already come full circle on this game. I feel like because literally the first thing that I saw was how cheap Fitzpatrick was in DFS, and I'm just looking at this game, and there could be some fireworks, there could be some points now that we have Russ throwing it around. And I'll say this, we talk about how travel definitely can impact going across the country, that sort of thing. But actually, Pete Carroll's done a pretty good job over the last couple of years of getting his team ready for some of these cross-country games. So that I'm not so much worried about that. I guess I probably never said a lot of great things about Pete Carroll in my history of doing these type of shows, but I think that's one thing that he does get his team ready to play. I think that, say what you want about Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's had a couple decent games so far this year. I mean, he's a streaky player in general. That's why he's so good for fantasy. I think Seattle, you mentioned it, they're hurting a little bit in terms of the injury side of things. So their backfield's banged up. Their defense is, at least their back 7 is a little banged up as well. So I honestly think that when I say I come full circle, I say all that stuff, but it's still Miami. I don't know if they're really going to be able to challenge Seattle in the ways that they're kind of hurting right now. So I think after all of that, maybe I'm a sick fish, but I'm on Seattle again.
I think the over is the play here. If nothing else, this game could be really fun. If it isn't fun, then you don't want any part of it anyway. So, I mean, as much as you don't want to bet for entertainment,
2 things.
Yeah, go Matt LaMarca. Give me some trends, baby. Hit me with them numbers.
Dolphins are, like the Jaguars. They are coming off of the Thursday game, so they have a little bit of extra time to prepare.
Totally.
And 2, Byron Jones is trending in the right direction to get on the field. So those are 2 things that I think make a difference. Byron Jones, one of the best cornerbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And again, rest advantage with a home underdog that nobody wants to bet on right now.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, it's one of those things where
you can talk me into it.
It's just you got to ignore the teams and look at the spot. Because if you look at the teams, you're not going to be able to convince yourself to bet on the Dolphins. But all the metrics would tend to point towards Miami here.
I want to be very clear about something. I'm very pro Dolphins. Like, just in terms of, like, I think the Dolphins, the rebuild is working really well. I think that they are exceptionally coached. I think that they have really good talent. People want to just say, oh, well, the Dolphins were tanking for Tua last year, and ignore the fact that that team played as hard as any team in the NFL down the stretch, and that they were feisty, to say the least. And that Fitzpatrick, as Holka mentioned, like, he's streaky. Is he the answer long-term? Hell no. But, like, he'll win you some games. He'll win you some games. There's a reason that he started for 8 different NFL teams. He'll win you some games. I can be talked into a position on the Miami Dolphins. And most of the time, I'm against the West Coast team going over to the East Coast, especially without hanging out on the East Coast for a while beforehand. This is the longest flight in the NFL. I can be persuaded to get off of Seattle. But 6.5 is just not tantalizing enough for me. It just isn't. If you can get me to a touchdown or above a touchdown, then yeah, I'll take a Dolphins play. I will. But man, I'm just going to take the over for now and hope that fireworks happen. And either way, then I'm going to be happy. Just play the over on this one. That's my Tuesday play. We'll see where we're at when this line moves, as it most certainly will move. That's just my bet on Thursday and Friday. We'll give a look at it then and see where we stand. All right, Justin Herbert, he's pretty good, but he did lose last week. He goes up against a guy who, listen, I don't know if you know much about him, but this Tom Brady fella has made me shut the hell up the last couple of weeks. I was fading Tampa, and listen, they've been playing bad teams. Don't get me wrong, but like, Brady's looked pretty good. It's dink and dunk and all that, but when you have receivers that good, come on. Tampa is now a 7.5 point favorite over the Chargers. That is up from 4.5, so massive line movement. The total has stayed the same. People are fading the Chargers. 78% of the spread bets in this game going for Tampa Bay. Start with you, Joe Holka. Are we a little late to get on the Bucs bandwagon here? Is the moment over?
I don't think it's over. I'm still not ready to jump off the other side. I feel like maybe again for the second straight game we're talking about, maybe I'm a sick fish here. I think there's a chance that Tampa Bay wins this game. I think that the spread is a little bit too aggressive for my liking. So not really on
Agreed.
that. We know we have some injuries, like a hamstring injury for Godwin, which we'll have to monitor throughout this week. I think there's a chance that this game ends up being a little bit lower scoring, maybe a little bit more of a grinding type affair. I was all over the Chargers last week in DFS. I still think that there's a chance that they could have some success here, but I don't know. This Tampa Bay defense, I still think, is the real deal. Like, everyone wants to talk about Tom Brady. I still think that this defense is the story.
Well, if the defense is the story, Matt LaMarca, then Justin Herbert's going to have a really bad day, and then that 7.5 looks pretty good because the offense ain't half bad either. What do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I love the Chargers here. I think that this is now a spot where, again, you're going from a touchdown favorite last week to now you're a touchdown underdog, completely different dynamic.
Right.
Tom Brady's numbers looked better last week, but I still think he's not playing, like the Tom Brady we've seen in the past. And I think the Godwin injury matters. It's sounding like he's going to miss multiple weeks or could miss multiple weeks. So I would be very surprised if he suits up for this contest. Yeah. And without one of those weapons, which you mentioned he's relying on, I don't see it. Like, he's already throwing to Gronk way too much, in my opinion.
Yeah. Which is more than zero.
Gronk is just a shell of himself. So what are we going to do? We're going to give Gronk more targets? He could get Mike Evans a little bit more involved, but again, Mike Evans is like a big play down the field threat, and I just haven't seen that from Brady to start the year. I mean, he's posted an adjusted yards per attempt of 5.49 or less in 2 of his first 3 games. That number was up last week versus the Broncos, but again, it was the Broncos, so like,
oh boy.
I don't think the Chargers are world beaters by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that this line has gone way too far in the other direction.
All right. What do you like about Justin Herbert, Shohoka?
I like his weapons a lot, and we talked about Kyler Murray earlier today. Justin Herbert has already figured out to throw to his best players and to throw to them until they are stopped. And if they're not stopped, you just take the free yards and you move on. So I guess he's a man, beyond his years in terms of just throw it to the guy that's good at football. So there's that. I don't know. This game freaks me out a little bit. I haven't really had a clear stay away yet, but this one, I think I'm on the Chargers just because I think this spread is a little bit aggressive, but I don't have a lot of conviction.
You feel any way about the total, Matt LaMarca?
I would probably lean towards the under.
Wow, at 45?
Yeah, I just, Joe mentioned Tampa's defense is pretty legit. I think that the Chargers defense is pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
Herbert, while he has been, I think, pretty impressive for the most part through his first 2 weeks, he did have one pick last week and 2 fumbles, rookie quarterback, probably going to make some mistakes early in his career. Hopefully he's not Daniel Jones level in terms of his ability to protect the football, but all young quarterbacks make mistakes. So I think that if I was to play the total here, it would be the under.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Maybe. I don't know if this game's going to happen given the COVID concerns. So this might all be for naught, but let's pretend as if it's going down and everything's A-OK. 85% of the spread bets going towards the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are 2.5, 3-point favorites, depending on where you're looking. Total in this game is 47.5. Where do you stand, Matt LaMarca? Steelers?
I'm still a very bullish on the Steelers. Again, this is another one of those spots that scares the hell out of me. It's going to be a road favorite public team. But to me, Pittsburgh is a top 5 squad in the league right now. And, Tennessee has won some games to start the year, but I don't think they've been impressive by any stretch of the imagination. So I like Pittsburgh on both sides of the ball. Deontay Johnson has looked great through his first couple of games. Gives Big Ben another weapon to look at when he's throwing the ball. James Conner had a week 1 struggle, but he's been back running the ball well the past 2 weeks. I just think that this Pittsburgh team is pretty complete on both sides of the ball.
Joe Holka, you want to take the Tennessee side here? Is there anything that you can do to talk us into the Titans?
Yeah, no. I think that
fair enough.
In general, I've been long on this Pittsburgh team for a while. I think people might be a little bit, I guess, if you've been watching the games, like this defense for the Titans has made some big plays and created turnovers, all of those things. But I don't necessarily think it's a good defense. The secondary is pretty average. I think that their run defense is also probably in the bottom half in the league. So I think that's kind of this is a tough spot for them against this Pittsburgh team who really has figured it out. They've been explosive. LaMarca mentioned how good James Conner looked last week. So I think that the Steelers here could have some success for sure. I think that if there's one team in the league that could possibly shut down Derrick Henry, I think it's this Pittsburgh front. So I think that the Steelers win this one. It's pretty close to a pick 'em from what I'm seeing. So we'll see how this line moves throughout the week. But I'm on the Steelers.
What was wild is that Tennessee opened as a 3-point favorite, and now it's 3 points the other way. So that tells you a lot. And who knows if Tennessee's going to even be able to play or if guys are going to have to be out of the game because of COVID concerns. Who knows if they'll be able to practice. So Pittsburgh seems like a good angle to be on, though a lot of the value has already been sucked out of this milkshake. Baltimore wasn't good last night. No, sir. But they get a team that's not good every week, and that is the Washington football team. And Baltimore is, mark it down, 13-point favorites in this one with a total of 47. We are back, baby, with massive, almost unsubstantiated lines. Now, the presumption is that Baltimore is just going to roll over the Washington football team.
Correct. Correct.
There. Okay. So I don't think we need to talk about it anymore unless Matt LaMarca has some information here that can convince anyone to take the 13 points.
Nope.
Okay. Moving on. Geez Louise. Daniel Jones and the New York Giants, who are garbage, going up against the Rams and Jared Goff, who are not garbage. And the Giants have to go across the country. And guess what? They're 13-point underdogs, too. Anyone want to talk me into taking the 13 points for the New York Giants?
Oh, man. This game's... We've talked about a lot of games so far that are like kind of weird. This game scares me. So I'm going to let LaMarca go first. Yeah, I don't know what to do here.
You got to talk me through that position in a moment. Matt?
If I was going to bet a 13-point underdog this week, it would be the Giants. They are winless. You can fade the public. Here's a good trend that I like. Team coming off of a game with fewer than 10 points scored.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Getting 30% or less of the spread bets.
Okay.
All right? The following week, 150, 96, and 4 against the spread.
Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
You know, it's one of those things where it's hard to forget what you last saw. And what we last saw was the Giants looking like an absolute train wreck against the 49ers JV squad.
Yes.
So...
And we're just sorry. Are we supposed to forget that? By the way, I mean there was no pass rush the entire game, and Daniel Jones was just throwing it to Niners.
Listen, no team is as bad as their worst game or as good as their best game. You know, and you got
this might be a normal game for the Giants.
The Giants did not look like a train wreck their first 2 weeks. It was really only the last.
They had Saquon Barkley.
Running backs don't matter.
Fair.
Yeah, they matter when it's their entire offense.
Correct.
I'm just saying there are reasons to like the Giants. Again, I don't know if I'm going to actually do it. I have lost so much money betting on bad teams to start the year, and I don't know if I can. I'm like getting a little gun shy. So I will.
Don't lose your confidence here. Keep that finger on the trigger here, Joe Holka. Tell me why you feel weird about this game, because I'm seeing a Rams team that played really well against Buffalo, that should have won against Buffalo.
They had like one good quarter.
So it was really, really good.
So, like we talk about this a lot, but there's similar narratives that present themselves every single year when we're doing this. And one of the things that you almost always notice is that in the beginning of the season, the first time these lines start to get a little bit more aggressive, it usually goes too far that direction because everyone wants to talk about how bad the Giants are. And I'm with you. They're bad. Like, I'm totally with you on that. They don't really have anything around Daniel Jones at all right now. So I totally get that. Saquon's out, all of those things.
The offense doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they running an Air Coryell offense with Daniel Jones? Like,
I mean, Aaron Donald, he's going to make this guy's life a living hell. Is back. I guess I don't think that, we had people on Slayton last week. I was one of them. I'd be shocked if he has a ton of success against Ramsey. But again, like these narratives that we talk about, this presents himself like every single year. No one's going to play Slayton this week in DFS because everyone had him last week and he failed. Now he's got this wide receiver cornerback matchup, which I'm not a big fan of overall. Maybe Slayton gets deep for one and no one has him. Literally sub 1% in DFS. But from a betting perspective, 13 points. I don't know. It just freaks me out. I'm not saying I'm going to go out there and bet it or anything. I just don't think this is just a slam dunk by any means.
How do you feel about the total 47.5? I know the Rams are going to get theirs. I guess we're feeling bullish that the Giants can score, 2 touchdowns.
I think it's an under just because I'm not going to put a lot of money behind Jared Goff and live to tell the tale usually. But I think this game. I don't know, man. You could put money behind Nick Mullins last week and live to tell the tale. So what the hell is Jared Goff going to do? This is true. I don't know. 13 points is a lot. That's my stance.
Fair enough. Okay, Matt LaMarca, I know where you stand on it. Let's talk about a game that is going to be good and is going to be interesting, and that is Cam Newton and the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick's double-team bracket defense against this Patrick Mahomes fella, who I'm not sure if you guys are aware, pretty good at the football.
He's not bad.
Chiefs started as 8-point favorites. They're now 7-point favorites. Beats me as to why. Total is 54. We'll start with you, Joe Holka. The Chiefs are never going to be an underdog again. That's for sure. I don't know. I made the mistake. I thought that Vegas knew what they were doing. Turns out that, we say that they're pretty good at this, but sometimes they're very, very wrong. And 3.5 points for the Chiefs on Monday Night Football was just larceny. I'm glad I hedged when I did. Is the short rest the issue here? Like, what would stop Kansas City from covering this game?
So these are the type of spots that freak me out a little bit in terms of like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I know everyone is riding high after this game and how well they've been playing overall. But like Bill Belichick, like we know he's probably going to try and take away one of the top options, right? It's either going to be Travis Kelce or it's going to be Tyreek Hill. So we can X one of those guys out most likely. I think that there's an argument that New England set up better to kind of take away Travis Kelce is kind of the way their personnel is set up. So I think there's a chance the Pats on the other side of the ball, they just go extremely run heavy with Cam Newton, their backs, their 13 backs, and then just try and keep Mahomes off the field. And there's a lot to be said about, keep him off the field. Great in theory. You still have to score points against Patrick Mahomes. I get all of that. But if there's one team that it just makes me a little bit, pause for a second, it's New England, because I do think that they could maybe make this game a little bit closer. I still think the Chiefs win, but I think that they might have a hard time covering the spread in this one.
So, Matt LaMarca, does that mean that this is a good underplay? Because it sounds like it might be a good underplay.
I thought last week was a good underplay, and I thought last week that the Ravens offense would be able to keep the Chiefs off the field. And the Chiefs defense came to play, man. Jackson missed some throws. Andrews dropped a touchdown earlier in the game, but they did a pretty good job for the most part against the ground game of the Ravens, which is where I really thought that they were going to struggle. So, by the way, now Patrick Mahomes in his career, 6-0-1 against the spread as an underdog. Probably should have considered that angle a little bit more.
Don't worry, that number can be etched in stone, because he's never going to be an underdog again. Just looking at the schedule, he's never going to be an underdog again. I don't care how many guys get injured. No one's ever going to make him an underdog again. Possible letdown spot here, though, for the Chiefs. They just get this big emotional win, right? Monday Night Football, Ravens, biggest Monday Night Football game since the last time they played on Monday Night Football against the Rams. Like, that was a big one. And now you get the Patriots, and the Patriots are always feisty, and they're always going to make it tough for you, and they're going to come with, a triple option attack or some BS. And it's like, hey, I can see a situation where New England covers. I'm having a hard time seeing Kansas City lose, but letdown game is a letdown game. That might come into a serious amount of play in this contest.
Yeah, and I was hoping that following the Monday night performance that the public would just be all over the Chiefs, and maybe that will still happen. Yeah. But at least early, the Patriots are the team that they're interested in.
Wild.
And
what's up with that?
Yeah, I was fully ready to break out my Bill Belichick trends. I love my Bill Belichick trends.
Oh, that's my favorite file on your computer.
He came through with rest in week 1, and he came through coming off of a loss in week 3. Mm-hmm. So now we get Bill Belichick as an underdog. And Belichick as a dog in the regular season, 23-10-2 against the spread. Mm-hmm. He's only been a dog of 7 points or more twice, and he's 2-0 in those situations. So it's not a huge sample size, but again, that's what happens when you're so good for so long. So
ain't that the truth?
I would love to see the public start loading up on the Chiefs here so I could back the Patriots. But, public underdogs are typically not a good wager. If when you want to fade the public, it's when – you always want to fade the public, but you want to be especially wary of backing, quote-unquote trendy underdogs that are getting a lot of public support. So, this is a situation that I will be monitoring because I want to be on the Patriots. I just don't know if I can be quite yet.
Give me the under. That's my play here. 54. Kansas City will miss a couple of possessions. They'll just sputter for no good reason. New England will find a way to limit possessions in general. Like, this is just going to be, if you're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the New England Patriots are going to show you how to do it. They might not be able to finish the job, but they're going to show you how to do it. And so I'm going to take the under in this one. This is going to be an interesting game too. And I'm surprised at the line currently. And we'll start with you, Joe Holka, because this is your boy. Josh Allen might be the MVP of the National Football League right now. Now, I would say it's Russ Wilson, but Josh Allen has a very compelling case. Buffalo looks awesome. They look like the real deal. They gave up a bunch of points early to the Rams and a lot of other teams. They fold in that situation, but they made sure that the empty stadium had something to cheer for in that game in Buffalo last weekend. Outstanding finish, albeit fraudulent, but outstanding nevertheless. They are 3-point favorites over the Las Vegas Raiders and Derek Carr, who I'm not sure are any good. The total in this game is 51.5. Joe Holka, why is the spread only a field goal in this game?
I mean, I think a lot of people just want to bury the Bills. Just they're seeing it like for the first time. They don't want to believe it. Like if it wasn't for Russell Wilson, like you said, we'd be talking about Josh Allen as like the MVP to start the year.
Still talking about it.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know what's going on up in your neck of the woods, Matt LaMarca, but nobody is giving Josh Allen the respect he deserves over here in California or up in Minnesota, up in real America, outside of your liberal elite bubble. We're not talking about Josh Allen.
Yeah, like what I meant was like I think people think this could be like a trap game, like going on the road against this Raiders team that we still don't know a ton about the Raiders overall, but we do know that their opponent had very little problems with them in the Patriots, and I actually think that it kind of shapes up as a similar game in this spot for the Bills. So yeah, I guess shocker, but I think the Bills win this one, cover the spread. I think I was kind of with you, Dieter, that -2.5 number that I saw right away seemed a little bit out of whack to me.
Well, I can tell you one thing that we know about the Raiders. Their defense remains garbage. So, again, a field goal? By the half a point, just for grins, just to make yourself sleep a little easier, because I just don't see a circumstance where Buffalo doesn't go to Vegas unless they get that Vegas flu, which I'm not sure how they're going to pull off in these crazy quarantine times. Like,
they could find a way.
I'm not seeing it, man. I'm not seeing it. Now, maybe their fans will show up outside the stadium and keep them up all night. But, like, what? Can you talk me into a Raiders position here, LaMarca?
Here's a trend for you.
Nice.
The Raiders are 1-0 in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they played the Saints, and the Saints are questionable.
I'll be honest, I don't have a great feel for this game. This is probably one of the ones that I'm least interested in. My thoughts were to gravitate towards the over in this contest, but man, this thing has already risen pretty significantly. It was 49.5, now it's 52.5. But yeah, Buffalo, I think, is a fun over team right now. They're passing more. They have some weapons for Josh Allen. They can do some things on that side of the ball, which is not what we have become accustomed to with Buffalo. And I also think you can question if their defense is as sound as it's been in years past. So we'll see. Again, I don't want to be on Derek Carr in this spot because I do think that the Bills are good. But at the same time,
you and me both, brother.
Public favorite who's playing on the road.
Yeah.
And you know how those make me feel.
Yeah, well, yeah, except one of the teams is the Raiders, so that should eliminate all trends. All right, let's do real fast here the Sunday night game and the Monday night game, and then we'll get the hell out of here. Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles, who played for a tie. Doug Peterson has a book called Fearless, and he was too afraid to play for a win. So he is a coward, and we should fade him at all costs, and the public is in with me. Whether Nick Mullins or Jimmy Garoppolo starts at quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, they will be a touchdown favorite on the consensus. That might be a little too hot to trot for me. Total's 45. I don't know. Anyone seeing value in the Eagles here?
Me.
Yeah, I
if
think
Nick Mullins is at quarterback, I'm definitely playing the Eagles getting a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Garoppolo should be in there, by the way. But if they run Mullins out there again, I can definitely buy not giving Nick Mullins a touchdown.
Did you see Carson Wentz last year, man? Or last week? He looked horrible. I don't know.
I mean, that seems to be a trend.
It was like the worst thing ever. I was like, okay, thank God. We got overtime here to save all of my Wentz stacks. That just really didn't do much for them overall. I don't know. I'm with you on Nick Mullins, and I think that this game is kind of gross for fantasy, kind of gross for betting, kind of just gross overall. That's kind of my stance on it.
Agreed. I get to watch it in person. No, actually, I'm not going to be there for that. Okay, Monday Night Football. Atlanta and Matt Ryan talking about Gross and Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a good opportunity to fade the Packers at 7.5-point favorites in some places, 7 in others. The line's already moved up 2.5 points overall, 57-58 total. Hot damn. Anyone want to join me on the fade the Packers bandwagon? Because I'm starting to feel real lonely on it.
Yeah, I think I'm jumping off that bandwagon, Dieter.
Nope.
You know that I was definitely on Team Green Bay is overrated, but it's starting to look like they might be legit.
Yeah.
More legit than they were last year. I mean, they hung, 35 points on the Saints without Devontae Adams?
Yeah.
They might be for real.
They might be.
For sure, I don't think Atlanta can slow them down.
Well, slow down is one thing. Outscore them is another.
Okay. That means Atlanta's going to have to score about 75 points.
Okay. Fair enough. In which case, the total, woefully undervaluing both of these teams at 58. Joe Holka, do you have a position, sir?
I don't know. This game's crazy because both of the top options for these teams, maybe we get Julio back from a hamstring, maybe we get Devontae Adams back from that hamstring injury.
Julio Jones doesn't exist.
I think Devontae
he was all
for what it's worth.
I think he's right, but if we want to literally take it a step further and look at Aaron Jones versus Todd Gurley, advantage Packers there for sure. I'm kind of with LaMarca, unfortunately. I'd love to live on that hill with you, Dieter, that the Packers are overrated, but I think this is a spot where they could roll. Minus 7.5 is the line that I'm looking at. I think there could be a lot of points here overall, even if Julio doesn't play. So I'm kind of interested in this game for fantasy. Definitely interested in Aaron Jones overall, but it's on the Monday night game, which is unfortunate. So maybe a little bit of showdown action for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll give you that. 58-point total and a showdown opportunity is
that is robust.
That's fine. It is a buxom total. All right. That's it. That's all we're going to talk about. For Joe Holka and Matt LaMarca, I'm Dieter Kurtenbach. Remember to use blitzbet.eu for all of your betting needs. You can, get some really good lines there. Better than some of them I've been mentioning as of late. Blitzbet.eu is the place, and linemovement.com for all the other stuff we got going on in terms of teaching you how to bet and giving you the best content on what to bet. So we'll talk to you guys, I guess, on the Island Show. I don't know, Joe Holka, you're on so often. When's the next time you're going to be talking to people?
I don't know. Just go to linemovement.com or youtube.com/linemovement. You'll find me somewhere for sure. But yeah, the Island Show is the one we do directly before Thursday Night Football. So check us out on that one.
Should be a good one. All right. Later, guys.
Lakers in 5.